we're going to discuss a large topic that can take years to learn. Each slide could literally be a topic in and of itself, so I'm not going to go in super deep depth on some stuff, but hopefully you guys will get a greater understanding about vascular disease and some of the myths that are out there, and then some of the stuff that, yeah, we can actually do stuff about it. We don't have to sit on the sidelines and just say, well, it's inevitable, I'm going to die. So with that, I'm going to get started. Again, my name is Aaron Fraser. Whitney and I work at Flying Horse Medical Center, and we'll go from there. I have no disclosures. I'm a doc, so I have to say I have no disclosures. So some quick facts. There's currently 121.5 million Americans who are living with cardiovascular disease. A lot of them don't even know they have that, and I'm going to show you that. Currently, in 2016, the price tag was $555 billion spent in the U.S. alone on cardiovascular disease. And by 2035, it'll exceed $1.1 trillion per year. Annie actually said that as well, so at least we're consistent. It is the number one killer and disabler of all Americans, men and women. It's actually the number one disabler and killer of everybody in the world, but a lot of our research is American-based. 2 through 5 combined does not equal the same amount of people who are affected by vascular disease. So all the cancers, the lung diseases, nothing close. Like I said, frequently silent. And this is, I found this fact, actually this is a new study that just came out, that I'm about to pop up, and it's going to shock you. The annual cost for caring for someone who's disabled with a stroke survivor is $8 million per year. That's a lot of money. So, just some quick facts. So, what the average physician gets, and it's not the physician's fault, and I'm going to get into this part, is the standard cholesterol panel. Wow, 5 whole numbers. This looks decent. You're doing all right. Go out there, have a great day. That's what most docs will say when they look at that. I'm going to show you that is not true. So this is our cholesterol panel. 1, 2, 3, 4, and it just keeps on going. So I know those just flashed up there, and you're like, oh my God, wait, I'm looking at it. I'm going to actually go break all those down for you in just a second, and what each one means. But before I do that, I kind of want to talk a little bit about arterial, big word, pathophysiology. Okay? So I'm going to make it simplistic, and if you guys have questions, please ask. Okay? So this is the aging artery, as you see it. Okay? Over on the far left-hand side, you see that this is the artery of a young individual. Okay? Cholesterol particles, that's your LDL, your triglycerides, some other ones that we're going to talk about that you probably haven't heard of. It's called your apolipoprotein B, your lipoprotein little a. You're going to notice the word lipoprotein in all of those words. Those are big key words to know about. They pass between the arterial wall. They kind of go into this empty space. They get taken up by the veins, and the veins then take it to the liver where it's metabolized. Okay? This pink layer right here is smooth muscle layer. Okay? Every inch, every mile of artery in your body has at least some smooth muscle. Okay? That's how when you stand up real fast, you don't pass out. Because the arteries contract, get the blood to your brain. Okay? As you age, that smooth muscle cell gets pushed into the other lighter pink area. You don't need to know any of these words, but it's called the intermediate layer. Okay? That layer I actually do want you to memorize, okay, or at least listen to. It's called the intermediate layer, because I'm going to talk a lot about the intermediate layer. As that smooth muscle cell is pushed into the intermediate layer, it becomes a totally different cell. It's no longer a smooth muscle cell. It becomes a secretory cell. That, I don't care if you remember at all. Secretory cells are, as they say, they secrete stuff, right? So one of the things it secretes is a glycoprotein. Okay, and I'm going to go over all these big words in just a minute, I promise. Problem is, if I don't use some of the big words, then it doesn't make sense. The glycoprotein likes lipoproteins. They form a bond. And when that glycoprotein and lipoprotein form a bond, they are no longer able to pass through that arterial wall, and they form those plaques that you start seeing there. Now, the light pink layer all the way on the left, when you're really young, you can see how thin that is. You can see as you move and you age, that light pink layer starts to get thicker. But your body doesn't allow for that to get thicker. So what happens is, it's like a closet. You're just shoving more and more and more stuff into that closet. Okay? At some point, you're building up a lot of pressure. Okay? To the point where at some point, there's going to be a pressure gradient or a dynamic shift where that door is going to pop open. All the stuff's going to come out, and your body's going to be like, nope. It's going to create a clot, block off that artery, and that's your heart attack. Okay? Or it'll create a clot, and it'll travel, and that's your stroke. Okay? So that's just the basic pathophysiology of what happens and what we're going to try and fix. So this is the advanced lipid panel that we obtained. So you can see the standard 5 numbers up top. We actually get 6 are on top. And those are just your quantity. Those are the physical number of particles in the bloodstream that we are measuring. Okay? The second set is the quality. How good are those particles? Why does quality matter? I'm going to get to that in just a second. And then these are your super bad particles. And they're in quotation marks. Okay? Why are they super bad? We're going to get to that too. Okay. So the most important particle is the HDL. That is your trash truck. Okay? Anybody know what the HDL stands for? Hands? High density lipoproteins. That's right. High density lipoproteins. Okay? So, on the left, your left, my right, I have quantity. On the right, quality. Okay? So it's an important number in relation to size, important for size and number, the quantity and the quality. And why is that? Well, remember I was saying you have a whole bunch of mileage in your body? You have 60,000 miles of arteries in your body. Every single one of us. It's a lot of miles. Just to give you an inclination, just the city of New York has only 6,000 miles of roadways. So 1/10 the mileage. Okay? If you think of New York City, okay, it takes fleets and fleets of trash trucks. Okay? But if you're driving around in one of those little F-150s with the trash thing, it's going to take you a long time to get New York City cleaned up. Right? You want those big trash trucks to clean up. Okay? If you can remember back to the artery model, okay, when those plaques start to build up, how do you start getting rid of that? With the trash trucks. The HDL pulls that away from that glycoprotein, those bad cholesterol. Okay? They take out the trash. That's how you get rid of it. So it's not only just the number. So that's why that first graph really didn't make a whole lot of sense, because it's not just about the quantity. I can't tell you how many times, like, oh, my HDL number is always good. I have people tell me that all the time. Like, great, what's the quality? No idea. So their number is phenomenal, but they're driving around in these little tiny trucks and not doing the job that they need to do, and their arteries are in bad shape. So it's not just one or the other, it is both. So the glycoprotein, kind of what I was telling you about, that is excreted, think of it again like Velcro. Glycoprotein is the hook end of Velcro. Okay? The lipoproteins that we were just talking about are the felt end. Okay? And felt, they stick together, and that's where that plaque gets formed. Okay? So just remember those felt pads and that Velcro, okay? So why do we call those particles way down at the bottom, those apolipoproteins, those are the super bad particles? Well, it's because they have higher numbers of felt pads. So if you think of a three-dimensional particle, or a three-dimensional object, the apolipoprotein B has 6 felt pads. So if you think of a three-dimensional object, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If it comes in contact with that glycoprotein, it's going to stick. Period. Okay? Lipoprotein A has 4. And basically these sticking is for people who are more in the chemically minded. It's where they form or have the ability to form ionic bonds. Okay? There's 6 ionic bond sites. Triglycerides have 2 to 3. It depends on their formation. And everyone freaks out. Oh my God, LDL has 1. Okay? LDL, how many times like, well, the LDL was great. His HDL was perfect. But he died of a heart attack. What happened? Well, his apolipoprotein B and his Lp(a) were through the roof. That was never addressed. So it's not the common, but that does happen. And doctors scratch their head like, well, what happened? We did everything right. Well, it's because we're just now getting to the stage where we can look at multiple different factors in relation to your health, in relation to your cardiovascular health. And this is more of the modern science, and unfortunately, modern medicine is about 20 years behind modern research. The other aspect, inflammation. So 2012, there was about 4 different articles all released about the same time that proved inflammation causes heart attacks, causes strokes. How? How did that work? Well, if we can remember back, and the average doc, by the way, who gets inflammation gets 1 marker. I get a minimum of 8. And there's a reason for that, because inflammation can come from many different factors in many different areas. So if you're addressing only one of those factors, that's great. But we're still in our infancy in relation to learning all the different inflammatory markers. I get 8. I know there's 20 out there, but I get the 8 most common right now until we can actually hone in on the rest. So let's go back to our artery model, okay? So once we see up here, inflammation actually wears that inside layer down to the point where there's a pressure change, where that door that's holding back all the pressure starts to thin out. The hinges start to break. All that happens to that door until it finally bursts through that door, right? That's what inflammation does. So one of the big things we can do for cardiovascular disease prevention is make sure we control that inflammation. Now the big one, okay? Genetics. Now, I am not getting into big-time genetics. This is a very in-depth discussion. So I'm going to briefly go over this very quickly because everyone is different, obviously. So the KIF6 gene, just briefly, I get 5 basic genetics. Your KIF6 gene is your cholesterol med gene. Basically tells me what kind of medication you should be on if you have an increased risk of cardiovascular disease in general. It also tells me if you're on certain statins, it can actually increase your cardiovascular risk. So all the whole population studies, and they're like, oh, everyone needs to be on Lipitor. Well, if you have the wrong KIF6 gene, you're on Lipitor, it can actually increase your risk. That's why people have some problems. So, not saying statins are bad, just FYI. There are certain situations, certain times, you just have to know exactly what you're doing and why. This is called the heart attack gene. There's actually a book out there. It's called Beat the Heart Attack Gene. It's by Dr. Bale, Bradley Bale. And this is where actually I started learning all this, is actually from his information. So the heart attack gene, so let's take a look at this particular individual. This person that you can see is in red. Okay, red bad, green good, yellow caution. Okay, like, oh my gosh, they're in red. What does that mean? Well, that means that this person, just if everything was great and just had that, this person has a 52% increased risk of having a vascular event in their lifetime. That alone. Now, does that mean that person will have a heart attack or a stroke? No. Does that mean the person won't have a heart attack or stroke? No. What it means is the risk is increased. We recognize there's a risk, and we do something different. We don't do your numbers based on population studies. We move your numbers to the left. We decrease your bad numbers. Okay? The next gene is called your ApoE gene, also known as your cholesterol gene. Now, again, I'm not going to go too much in depth into this, but basically when people are like, what kind of diet should I be on? I'm like, I don't know. What's your ApoE gene? Because it depends on how you metabolize and how you will take in fats, cholesterol, okay? If you have a bad gene there, doesn't matter how active you are, I eat nothing but salads all day. Does not matter. You will never control your cholesterol. You will not. In fact, the keto diet, if you have a specific diet, it's called a 3-4 or 4-4, keto diet is absolutely horrible for you. Because that's the big new diet craze, right? It's the keto diet. Now a 2-3, again, you don't need to know all these. 2-2, 2-3, even a 2-4, keto diet is perfect. It's great. So when people are saying, well, should I try the keto diet? It's a great question. Don't know yet. The next one is your 4q25 gene. That's your AFib gene. And then I literally, every single time I draw these panels for my patients, I sit down for 60 to 90 minutes every single time and go through every single thing with them so that they understand. And then if they don't understand, they need to come back. Great. Or they're like, you need to talk to my wife about this. Because that's what happens. Guys are like, I'm going to have to bring my wife. And so we do it all over again, an hour later, for another hour, and we talk to the spouses. And that happens frequently. Because this is a lot of information. This is a lot of, you're absolutely correct. This is a lot of information. How does the average person do it? The average person does it with someone in their corner that can help them out and helps design a program for them. Okay, the MTHFR gene. Who's heard of the MTHFR gene? Okay, everybody knows the mnemonic, and everybody says it's a bad word. That's right. That's right. I'm not going to say that here. However, we're going to talk a little bit, just briefly, about the MTHFR gene. This is actually where I'm going to have you guys are going to have some fun. Okay, so the MTHFR gene helps in metabolism to give you energy. Basically, it metabolizes, the gene makes an enzyme that metabolizes B12 and folic acid. And you're like, oh my God, my brain hurts. If you're inefficient at metabolizing B12 and folic acid, you will find a way to do it. You have to. You have to find a way. Okay? So, if you can't, you're going to rob Peter to pay Paul. If you're really bad, you're going to shank Steve. Okay? Okay? So I actually have a couple of cardiologists, believe it or not, as patients. And they're hilarious because we go back and forth. And so I tell them they don't know much about the MTHFR gene. And so I tell everybody the exact same thing. I don't care if you're a carpenter or a cardiologist. Do not care. I tell everybody the same thing. Okay? Pretend you're a sweater maker. And you're like, okay, where are you going with this? Pretend you're a sweater maker. You have to make 5 sweaters a day. You have to survive. Okay? You guys are terrible sweater makers. Sorry. You can only make 2 sweaters a day. That's all you can make is 2. Okay? So, but I just said you had to make 5, right, to survive. Like, you're going to die if you don't get 5. So, you're going to rob Peter to pay Paul, and if you're really bad and only making 1 sweater, you're shanking Steve, to get those 5 sweaters. Okay? So if I give you a whole bunch of yarn, are you guys going to make any more sweaters? No. You guys are terrible sweater makers. You're terrible. You can only make 2. So when you have a deficiency in your MTHFR gene, I need to give you sweaters. What that is you can't metabolize folic acid and B12 very efficiently. So instead of giving you B12 and folic acid, I need to give you the pre-metabolized form of folic acid and B12. And that pre-metabolized form goes into what's called the Krebs cycle. You don't need to know that. But it gives you energy. So that's why people, when they get a B12 shot, man, I feel great. And then you give a B12 shot to another person, they're like, I felt squat. The reason being is that B12 got quickly metabolized for the person who has the proper gene. Their energy goes through the roof because their ATP went through the roof. And the guy who's got terrible sweater making capabilities didn't feel anything. Again, there's consequences for robbing Peter and paying Paul, and then shanking Steve. And that byproduct is homocysteine. Okay? Homocysteine builds up plaques in the brain, damages vessels, and increases your risk for dementia and Alzheimer's. Okay? So long and short, don't shank Steve, just take your sweaters. Okay? So you can see here, this person's homocysteine level was high. Now what you don't know is, because I know the individual who this is, their homocysteine level was 40. I'm healthy as a horse. No, that person actually had really bad arterial disease. We got it down. The goal for homocysteine is less than 8. So they're actually trending way down. They cut it in half in less than a year. Okay, on to some other cool stuff. This is just basically a marker of, is your heart pumping? Your heart is just a pump. That is all it is. We glorify it in so many different ways. It is a double pump. That is all it is. Okay, now it's a miraculous pump. But if you know from any forms of mechanical engineering, pumps generally don't fail. It's the pipes that feed the pump that fail. Okay? So this tells me, yeah, the pump is doing okay, but it doesn't really tell me what the pipes are doing. And that's the same thing with your heart. It's the pipes that matter. You notice that the arterial disease picture I showed you was all about the arteries. It really wasn't about the heart specific. Only when the arteries start to fail, then the heart starts to fail. Does that make sense? We also look at your essential fatty acids. Back in the 80s, we said, okay, all fats are bad. Oh my God, no fats. Right? And so then we just put sugar in everything, and we all got fat. Now we're like, okay, maybe we shouldn't have done that. Okay? But that was the 80s, right? So we actually look at your fats. Now this person actually is not too bad, but they can improve in relation to their essential fatty acids, their EPAs, their DHAs. And those are big words: eicosapentaenoic acid, dexahexaenoic acid. You don't need to know those. Essential fatty acids that help make good cholesterol, those big trash trucks. They also are important for making your good hormones. All your hormones, every single lick of hormone, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, all of it comes from fat and cholesterol. So when people in the 80s, everything crashed and tanked, that's when people's testosterones tanked. That's when people's estrogens tanked. That was the start of it. Okay, great. So should I just start digging my grave now? You know, is that it? No, we can fix it. Let's fix it. All right, so here's some sample and case reports. Now remember how I said I wanted you to remember the intermedia and how we put a whole bunch of, the body puts junk in there if you're not taking care of your body right, and it starts to get bigger. Well, one of the ways we can measure how we're doing and how we're going to be reversing this process is called the CIMT, a carotid intermedia thickness. Okay, and this is what we're measuring in this individual. Okay, now remember how I said everybody's a little bit different? Well, this is a 40-year-old male, elite athlete, and I do mean elite, Olympic level, super healthy, eats healthy. I don't need to be here. I'm just here because my wife told me I had to be here. Can't tell you how many times that happens. Okay? Well, when we got him, he was at 41, and he had the arteries of a 60-year-old. Now, this is a person who exercises more than 3 times a day, right? And that's what you were saying, right? Well, he had some genetic factors that he didn't realize. We changed what he did. We changed his diet to be what it should be based on his ApoE gene. We put him on a couple of different supplements, changed a little bit of his exercise regimen, still exercising. And 1 year later, we dropped it from 60 to 48, 12-year difference. Now, in relation to CIMTs, you're talking micromillimeter changes, okay, differences. Anything that's 7 years or greater is considered statistically significant, okay? Another person. This is one of the guys who are like, oh, this is the guy we're fighting on the couch. He's sitting on the couch a lot. 45-year-old male. He's already had a TIA, which is a transient ischemic attack, small little mini stroke. Okay, he's got hypertension, poor lifestyle, morbidly obese. Now I still can't get him off the couch, which would be his best option. Okay, I actually like that fight on the couch. That's a good one. I'm going to steal that. Okay, but we did change his diet. We did put him on a couple of different things, and you can see here we actually reversed him. He was 44 when we first got him, with the arteries of a 54-year-old, and then a year later he had the arteries of a 43-year-old. 11-year change. 65-year-old, history of vascular disease, history of diabetes, history of hypertension. He was 63 when he first came here. He had the arteries of an 82-year-old. He was in bad shape, also fighting the couch. Okay, we actually, in 2 years, reversed him by 22 years. Now, the way we did that, he did get his butt off the couch because this was a wake-up call for him. We changed his diet, changed his regimen around, and he's doing a lot better. And we reversed his process. He's now 65 and has the arteries of a 60-year-old. It is possible to reverse the disease process. Okay, and you're saying, oh, you're just showing these. I mean, I have hundreds and hundreds of patients. I don't have the time. You guys don't have the time. This is not atypical when people follow the program. It's not abnormal. Another one, 34-year-old bodybuilder, owns his own nutrition store. Okay? I don't need to be here. Another one of those guys, right? Big dude. Bodybuilder for 15 years. Did have a little bit of family history of vascular disease. First time he came in, he was 33, had the arteries of a 48-year-old. I'm like, oh, that's not 48, it's not bad. Right? Well, that's a 15-year difference, right? 12-year difference. Now he's 34. He has the arteries of a 31-year-old. We changed what he did. He needed to do more cardiovascular instead of just weightlifting all the time. Okay? So how do we reverse this cardiovascular disease process? Like you were saying. Well, it's cleanup time. Okay? I'm going to break 6 months of lectures, 8 hours per day, every day, down into 10 seconds. Okay? You guys are going to all be doctors by the end. Okay? You got to clean up the trash. You got to improve the quantity and quality of your HDL. It's number one. You have to do it. And that is not always easy. And one of the biggest, most important factors for that is exercise. Number two, you got to clean up and stop inflammation. One of the biggest parts for that, there's many factors, many factors that individually I'll talk to people about. Biggest one, dental health, believe it or not. Go get your teeth cleaned. It's one of the biggest contributing factors to inflammation. We work very closely with dentists in relation to cardiovascular disease prevention. And then we got to stop that production. We got to stop the production of that glycoprotein. So remember how I said in the previous one where you saw, it's actually right here. So you see that plaque or the clot at the end on the far right? What they've done is actually they've gone in and taken that out to revascularize your heart, right? And they culture it. And the bacteria in that clot is 100% match to the bacteria in your mouth. There is nothing that's 100% medicine that I've ever found 100% match. So that's why people, when they have certain prostheses in their heart or their bodies or their joints or whatever, they have to take antibiotics. It's because every time you get any work done, bacteria floods into your arteries. Now your body can take care of it, okay? But if you have that underlying plaque, like you were just talking about in the mouth, it's different, but it houses that bacteria. And it's disrupted. You're just constantly getting a low level of bacteria, constantly being delivered into the vascular system. And that builds up inflammation. Summary. Everyone is different. You can see why you come in and it's like, oh, you just do this, you'll be fine. No, everyone is different. That's why I can't tell you, sir, what you should do specifically, because I don't know what you have. But I can tell you if I did get all that information. Doctors are really stuck. Modern doctors are really stuck in population studies. And they're stuck to the point where their treatment model, instead of having an individualized approach, they have a treatment approach that is good for the masses, which is previously back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, that is what we needed. We've advanced past that point now. We can individualize your care, and we need to. Otherwise, we're not doing you any service. Again, I'm not going to be able to tell you exactly what each individual person is going to do because it's individualized. Now, the one thing that is constant, doesn't matter, is exercise.
We didn't even see each other's presentation.
Okay? That is constant. That is a constant. You need to exercise if you want to decrease your cardiovascular exercise. Now, you're going to say, wait, what about diet? Again, we've already talked about that, right? It needs to be individualized. It doesn't, like the individual just eating salads all day, that's not going to be helpful for them. They need certain fats. They need certain things depending on what their genetics show them. However, the take-home should be, cardiovascular disease is reversible. And that's what you need to take home. Okay? Thanks.